can't see. I can't see any of the preferences.
Okay.
Be the person that
I
gets
will
to read the
Yes,
chat.
I'll read the chat. All right.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the third FLAVA Professional Development Workshop. I'm Sharon Shinicariello from the University of Richmond, and with me is my colleague Stacy Powell.
From Auburn University.
And we're going to talk today about multimedia and digital stories in the world language classroom. So welcome. Please feel free to type questions and respond in the chat window, and we will try to respond to you.
And we do have several times during the workshop where we're going to ask you to actually do something and participate with us and give us feedback. So, we'll be watching the chat for your responses then too.
So that's us and our email addresses if you want to get hold of us. Today's goals, we really want to talk about digital storytelling as a way to incorporate student-created multimedia into the language curriculum with a little bit of theory and some practice. And we then are going to talk about apps that you can use to produce these digital stories and practice a bit. The QR code is a link to the virtual handout. Now, we will send a physical copy of the handout out with your certificates, but we also have a website called There's an App for That, and this is linked into that. So if you have a QR code reader,
does everybody know how that works? Tell us in the chat if you've got any.
If you have problems with QR code readers, let us know.
So you can find your reader on your device and going to get the.
So Stacy is demonstrating how to do this.
Point this at the code. Ours is on the screen in front of us, and then it will come up on your device, and you'll have the site.
So, everybody have a chance to get that? We'll show it again at the end.
But that will be a good reference for you while we're talking.
So,
do you need to go back so you can try it again?
Do we need to do it again? What are we getting here? There it is.
Yeah, let's hit please show again.
There it is.
We can wait a minute and let folks get it.
No, QR.
You need a QR reader.
You need a QR, okay, yeah, you need a QR reader. There are a bunch of free ones. Just
the one I use is just called QR reader. Yeah, and they're free. So.
And there are, just in passing, there are numerous articles in Language Educator and a bunch of other places about how to use QR codes in your language classroom. Because most students have phones have QR readers, and you can do all sorts of interesting things with QR readers. Not our topic today, but if you have a QR reader, you might want to play around with it. In some places, people were putting little QR codes, because you can generate them. They're free QR generators on browsers and things. And so people were generating QR codes and sticking them around campuses so that people could take like little tours in world languages. So you could stick a little QR code on some campus landmark, and your students would create the foreign language page that would then, the world language page that would then tell about that landmark.
Is yours working?
So there are all sorts of interesting things if you have a QR reader and a QR code generator. Yeah. So while we're doing this, the brainstorming question is, what are your goals for incorporating multimedia projects into your curriculum? And what concerns do you have when you think about doing that? So what we'd like you to do is take a couple of minutes, talk among yourselves, and type in some responses. So why would you like to do this? And what concerns do you have when you think about attempting it? And we're going to mute and have our little discussion, and we'll come back to you in a couple of minutes, okay?
All right, we've unmuted our mic, and I'm taking a look at the chat here if I can figure out how to do that.
So as we review the chat, did you write in your...
Yes, they've all written a lot.
Okay.
So, students to check grades. Multimedia project. Personalize. Yes, absolutely. Time it takes to do the added tools. Yeah.
So time away from language instruction, technical support are two big concerns.
Yeah.
A value is personal, the aspect of a personal expression. And one of the things we didn't mention here that comes up a lot is that you're asking the students to produce things they can do rather than catch them at things they can't do. So particularly for language learners, you can work on what they need and want to express and getting that more correct than oh, you didn't know how to make the passive composé agree with the preceding direct object. I'm going to catch you.
Okay, a lot of similar concerns being expressed.
I like the good things to use instead of a worksheet. I can actually see that.
Yeah. Learn by creating things. Using the target language in personal ways. Yeah, that was echoed by another group.
And authentic speakers, yeah, that's the other thing is if you're remixing media, then you're also working on comprehension often, which is useful as well.
Kids get easily bored.
Yes. Kids get bored. Yes, we were calling that learner engagement here.
Yeah.
Kids have
It's
fun.
more fun.
Yes, let's call it learner engagement. Yes, they tend to be less bored, more engaged in what they're doing and spending more time on task. And we see this at all levels of instruction.
Lack of fun. Okay, so
as we were doing this, too much or too complex technology, which a lot of people have addressed. And one of the things we're going to talk about is how to find simple applications that will accomplish what you need, so you don't have to spend a lot of time with tech support.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, they're used to PowerPoint. They know PowerPoint. They're not comfortable trying out anything other than PowerPoint. And you've got yours trained on Prezi, and so that they don't want to move outside that comfort zone.
So you need to give them a specific reason to move to a different application or a different way of doing things, but it has to add value. If you can do narrated PowerPoint, hey, that works, because the goal is the same.
Yeah, and choosing something simple that hopefully they can figure out that you won't have to do a lot of support on.
Nobody really mentioned integration with lesson plans, which comes up all the time with my folks, which is how do we incorporate this as a task when we have this textbook and we have all this stuff to do and all these worksheets that come with and all this online stuff, and where are we going to fit this in? Yeah. And of course the goal is to find an activity that replaces the people who are talking about personalized assessment and that kind of thing. So rather than the generic assignments, the idea is to find something that will show what the students have learned in a different way. The same goals, different form of assignment. But it's not, and this is really hard for people who are used to teaching with certain syllabi, it's not a both and. It's a, let's take this multimedia project and use it instead of something else. And then assessment is another one. What are you going to assess, right? We all know what to assess in our more traditional forms of assessment. It's harder when it's multimedia because if the aesthetics of the multimedia do not seem to suit what's going on, is that really part of what you should be assessing? So there are a lot of rubrics for this, and we gave you this website because she's just got dozens of them.
Yeah, there's an entire page.
But one of the things one of our colleagues who writes a lot about digital storytelling talks about is balanced assessment. And I talk to this with the faculty I support with digital storytelling and multimedia projects too, which is you want the media to be appropriate and used appropriately, but you really don't give extra credit if they did really fantastic transitions in their videos. That's the difference. It's if they were more involved in the production than in the content and the language, then you've got a problem.
And so it's making a rubric and figuring out what you're assessing and what.
But you can't neglect the aesthetics and the technique either, because that is what you're trying to teach, is how to communicate in a different way, not just with language but also with media. So you've got to have a balance, and it's going to depend on what the objective of the assignment is as well. For a final project, we do final multimedia projects that are 15 minutes to 20 minutes long in some of our upper level classes, that the technical perfection of that has to be pretty good. But they've been working all semester on it. It should be as good as if they were writing a paper, where you would expect the formatting and the footnoting and all that stuff to be good. And they have a lot of support for that. The faculty members don't have to teach them. But that's part of the expectation. Whereas if we have somebody doing a 2-minute digital story in German 101, the technical perfection is not a value. It has to be watchable. That's basically all we care about. Watchable and hearable. That's basically all we care about. So just to remind everybody, one of the things use of multimedia created projects is to meet this standard 1.3 of foreign language, the world language standards, present information, concepts, and ideas to an audience of listeners or readers on a variety of topics, and also in a variety of ways. Different audiences require different ways of communicating, and that's one of the things we want to emphasize, and so that's one of the reasons for using multimedia. And of course, then the 21st century skills that somebody mentioned here, media literacy. What kinds of images are appropriate if you're using images and video clips and things? What kinds of images are appropriate, and what kinds of impression are they conveying when you one of our examples is about the Holocaust, and then the other one's about a fall of Berlin. The images of that the images alone convey a message. So knowing what those messages are conveying becomes important when you're trying to tell a story, tell somebody something else about that period. So that's media literacy. And then the ability to communicate with digital tools, right, is equally important. Do we have every...
Touched on everything. That was a comment there.
So one of the best ways of thinking about incorporating multimedia is to think about the concept of digital storytelling, which has been around for a great long time. And a lot has been written about it. On our handout, you'll see a lot of references that you can look up and find research and ideas and all sorts of things. The traditional definition, because there's a whole thing called the Story Center, which is a center for digital storytelling. They have workshops, they have courses, they have everything. The traditional definition is a short, first-person video narrative created by combining recorded voice, still and moving images, and music or other sounds. And the important thing here for world language teachers is recorded voice. That's what we want our students to do, right? Is speak for the most part. And this is presentational speaking, because it's generally scripted, although we can talk about when it might not be. But traditional digital storytelling is very, very highly scripted. However, as you start looking through the literature about using this in the language classroom, what you discover is a lot of people suggest a lot of different modifications. And particularly if you're using this as a framework at all levels of instruction, when you start up in upper level kinds of classes and you're substituting the writing of paper for the creation of a digital story for the writing of a paper, you don't necessarily want this to be in the first person. You want it to be more objective in some ways. However, a good digital story will always have a definite point of view. So even if you are talking about a historical or cultural event, you're going to present it in a way that has a viewpoint. It doesn't necessarily have to be argumentative, but it should have a point of view. And this goes back to finding a voice when you're writing a paper. You have to have a point of view, or nothing you produce is going to be worth reading. So this is this idea. It doesn't have to be in the first person, although that's really useful for like beginning language learners. But as you move, you might move into something that's not first person, but definite point of view. Not necessarily short. Traditional digital stories are no longer than 5 minutes. However, we get up to 15 and 20, depending on the assignment. but they have to be focused. That's the whole point. Getting students to write short rather than write long is, of course, an art all of its own. And this is one of the ways of getting them to focus on a point of view and on the important points. So not necessarily short, but definitely focused. One of our colleagues who writes a lot and he calls them digital micro-narratives. And what he means, and this is for novice learners, because realistically, if you're in a 100 level at beginning, if you're in 7th grade Spanish and you've only learned how to say hello, how are you, and what is the weather like, you aren't going to be able to do much of a digital story in the traditional sense. So what he's promoted, and some other people as well, is a story created over time. And we did this on one of our study abroad projects, where all the students got Instagram accounts and they all used a common hashtag, and they were assigned to post a picture and a caption. This is not voice, right? So they're using text, but a picture and a caption every other day. And at the end of the period then, they had essentially a story of what they had done. Or they could work together, since they all had the same hashtag, they could work together and combine and tell a story about the day we went to, this was Normandy beaches, so the day we went to the Normandy beaches, that kind, and talk about that. And they could present the pictures and text, and then they could build on that with a recorded story as a more advanced thing. So created over time is another. And then the other one is continually modified as your language develops. So they start out being 3-word sentences, and then then you keep asking students to elaborate on the images that they've commented on, either by voice or in text. So those are 2 ways of developing the digital story concept with multimedia. Now, we were going to show a couple of stories. Learn DST is where the Richmond University public projects are posted, and right now there are a whole lot about Richmond history, which are in English, so you might find some interesting ideas there. But the Visions of Berlin course is I think it's a 400 level course in German. And their final assignment was to produce a digital story about something important to the image of Berlin. So that's the Holocaust. Is that the Holocaust?
That's the wrong one.
Well, no, that's the Holocaust one. I want to show both of them. So we'll do this.
Wait, but you want to do the Berlin one first?
Did I?
No. That one.
Okay. I don't.
Sharon can't see the screen.
Sharon has really blind eyes.
Okay.
I don't know why it's doing this.
Fragen von
I don't know why it's buffering. It didn't do it before.
Identität sind in Peter Schneiders Buch Der Marotspringer viel besprochen. Es gibt auch die Frage, von wo der Staat aufhört und der Ich anfängt. Es war der Meinung von beiden Seiten von zerspaltet Berlin, dass es vielleicht besser gehen könnte, wenn sie sich vereinigten. Doch ist Berlin wirklich heute noch vereinigt? Schneider meinte, dass Berliner auf beiden Seiten sich nicht direkt.
I don't think it's worth sitting through the whole
No,
thing.
we're not going. We weren't going to sit through the whole thing anyway. And if it's buffering like this, let me show you. So that's about an event most of us are familiar with, and the question that she's asking is Berlin truly united? And they have read a book about this, and they have discussed it in class, and now she's coming up. Her point of view is to show images of separation and unification. And at the end, she poses some more questions.
But you notice the combination of the images that she selected, the music that she selected, which is another issue entirely. We'll talk a little bit.
We're going to talk about the fact that this is all copyrighted music.
But the fact that she picked music that went with her theme. She picked the images that were very powerful images that illustrated the point of view she was trying to share, and then she had the text and the questions, and then her voice. So,
and the other one.
Wie kann ein Land an den Holocaust erinnern, wenn das Land den Holocaust begonnen hat? Das ist das Problem, womit die Mitglieder des Bundestages bei der Planung des Holocaust-Mahnmals in Berlin sich befassen mussten. Während des Dritten Reiches war Berlin ein Zentrum der nationalsozialistischen Aktivitäten. Dies ist ein Teil des Grundes, weshalb Denkmäler in Berlin solche Bedeutung halten. Als Hauptstadt von Deutschland dienen Berliner Monumente als Chance, die Geschichte direkt anzusprechen und auch zu entscheiden, wie die Gesellschaft daran erinnern will.
For those of you who don't speak German, I think it's clear what she's talking about is the problem of creating a Holocaust monument in the place where the Holocaust was created. And the power of this is just the imagery and the music at the beginning, and then phrasing the question. And so you can see that these can become quite complex. She's essentially giving the whole history, I mean, the little bit of the historical documentation. This is only a 5-minute long story, but it sums up the whole semester of research and discussion that she did for this class.
And the question in the chat was about what program was used. These were probably created in iMovie.
I'm almost positive they were in iMovie because I did all the technical support. I run this
for this
studio, so that's how I knew that these all existed and had access. These are not public. I got permission from the students to use them here, and their professors shared them with me. But because of the copyright issues involving the music, they will never be public. And so that's our next. But iMovie is what we use as a university platform for creating these. But there are a lot that we're going to talk about. What do you do if you don't use iMovie?
Yeah.
So I got to go back to PowerPoint. Yes. There we go. Document. There. And we're going to have to run through them again. Nope. No, we don't. Good. Fantastic. All right. Okay, so to sum up about digital storytelling, before we make you talk, the Digital Storytelling Center talks about 7 essential elements. The first is point of view. It is really important to have a point of view. The dramatic question, I think everybody's asking dramatic questions now too. They don't have to be quite so dramatic as what do you do about the Holocaust, but in general, you need to pose a question. It can be something about identity, your own identity. It can be anything that intrigues you, basically. Emotional content, and we always tell our students as we give these workshops, that doesn't mean they have to be tear-jerking. But it means that you want to put something together that will make people feel something about what they're seeing. That you felt something about it when you created the multimedia, and so now you want to convey that. That's part of the communication of the message, is how do you feel about what you're communicating. Pacing. Pacing is really important because of the next thing, economy. These have to be focused. And again, having people learn to be short and precise is an art and a gift. So pacing and economy, soundtrack. How does the soundtrack, the sounds and the music you put behind this, enhance or take away from what you're trying to convey? And I think you saw in the two examples the difference that music can make. The Holocaust one has that really somber music. And the gift of one's voice. Now, if you're doing a spoken narration, that's the most valuable piece. And of course, for a language teacher, you want to make sure that the language is practiced and good and articulated well and all these wonderful things. But you can also modify it and only use text. Some of the apps that we found allow you not to do recorded voice, but to type in text. And so it is appropriate, if depending on your instructional goals, of course, to have people do written work. There's nothing that says writing is not of value in a language classroom. So privileged speaking, privileged writing, you can alternate back and forth depending on what you're trying to get the students to do. A 15-minute digital story with only text might be a bit much, but a 2-minute one, that might be totally appropriate. So that's the kind of thing we're talking about. Oh. So we want you to start. Think about the kind of stories you might ask your students to produce. What at the novice level, what at the intermediate level, and what at the advanced. The examples I had were obviously from the advanced level, but we have people doing this at all levels of instruction. So what kinds of things might you have your students do realistically?
And we will mute our microphone so that we can discuss here.
And of course, what would the learning objectives be for these kinds of assignments?
So please share with us in the chat.
Yes, share in the chat.
we're going to come back together. We just had a really good discussion on making sure that students understand that the point of the activity is not to create the multimedia project. The point of the activity is actually whatever your learning objective is. And so making sure that the students understand that and that doesn't get lost in the coolness of whatever multimedia they're using, whatever tools they're using, so that they remember to focus on the learning objective.
And we've got some really interesting things here.
Let me see if I can go back to where we were.
Somebody with better eyes than I do.
Yeah. Oh, we have a lot that came in. Okay, this is about where we were. All right, so daily routine, telling time, adjectives, dream life, how to cook a recipe, yeah. Family, a lot of these we did mention at our group also. Travel stories. As you're looking through these, hopefully you're all looking through the chat as well, be thinking about what you can actually do, because we're going to ask you to create something.
Yes.
So pick one of these while you're looking at it.
Yes, I want the person who said telling time to figure out how to make that a dramatic story.
University life, yeah.
Yeah, take me down.
Vacation ads, vacation ads. I'm make sure I'm reading that correctly. Yeah. Planning a vacation.
Yeah.
Cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah, lots of really good ideas. Cooking show. Book creator. Okay.
Oh, they've been using Book Creator. Yeah, that's a
good one. All about me. Impersonating an artist. Yeah.
Assuming a role, a lot of people who write about digital storytelling write about the creation of alternate identities by learners, that they can be other people, so they can imagine themselves as a successful learner, but they can imagine to create alternate identities by writing these stories.
Mm-hmm.
And
solving local environmental challenges. Stories for a genuine audience. Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, the genuine audience things. So a couple of the things, the compile a diary of daily life over time, that was one of the, where like Instagram works, study abroad kinds of things. Recount a cultural event.
Nightmares, I like that.
Nightmares, somebody come up, yeah. Review a film, book, or concert, that kind of thing, can be fairly straightforward and can be done pretty much at any level, right? The other thing is if you have one of these tasks, you can make it very simple for the novice learners and they can review over time, whereas more advanced learners can start at a different level and do more sophisticated kinds of work and analysis. But everybody has an opportunity to express themselves. Mm-hmm. So let's see. Here we go. All right. So a couple of issues that we want to talk about before we make you do this. Copyright and fair use. And our handout has some resources about navigating copyright. As I said, we said about the one about the Berlin Wall, that's copyright music. That's one of the reasons that nobody beyond this will ever see that particular digital story anywhere public, because the use of copyrighted music in digital storytelling or anything else that's going to be public is probably going to get you a cease and desist letter. The music industry very much keeps track of where copyrighted music is online, and you will get cease and desist orders. Anybody at a university or school who says they have not gotten one is probably not telling the truth. The university lawyers have certainly gotten them. I know I got one for doing something totally fair use, I thought, from Verizon, saying, do this again and we cut off your internet.
Wow.
These are very spooky letters. The music industry has a lot of lawyers. Now, they have gone through, there has been a court case called the Dancing Baby case, which just got decided after, I think the baby is now like a teenager. So the amount of legal fees involved in this were huge, and it was, of course, taken to court by foundations and fair use kinds of, it was a test case. But somebody had filmed their baby and posted it on dancing and posted it on YouTube. The music the baby was dancing to was copyrighted music, and the rights holder sued. Now, it was decided in favor of the person who posted it, but it took years and a lot of legal fees and a lot of anxiety. So be careful with music. My music librarian tells me that classical music, of course, copyright in the United States lasts 75 years. So Bach has long lost the copyright to his music, right? The problem is the orchestra that plays him and the performer that plays him have not lost the rights to the music. If you use a recording of Itzhak Perlman playing something that's long out of copyright, Itzhak Perlman owns the right to his own performance. So we tell our students, we have a lot of music students on our campus, and we tell them, hey, go get a friend to play something. That works.
Well, and the other things, there's also sites that you can search
and that's what we're going to talk about. Yeah, we're going to talk about searching, and we're going to have you do some searching. Music is particularly difficult, okay, because it really is very well patrolled. That's one of those things where the music industry has lawyers and they use them. Okay. You can get, if you are using images of people, now if you create your own stuff, you have no copyright problems. Anything you create is copyrighted to you. You don't have to go proclaim it anywhere. It's yours. And the copyright is automatic. But if you go out, we have a lot of people who do digital stories about the use of Spanish in the community. We have a Spanish in the community thing, and they go out and tutor. You don't take images of the kids you're tutoring. They're minors. Parents have to sign. You have to have releases, and parents have to sign them. And depending on what school you're at, your school district or your university may say, no, that's not going to happen. So you may have to use stock images of children or something like that, because you can't. So be careful about minors, and for adults, have a release. There are standard releases, and you just get somebody to sign them. So that'll protect you. Public domain and Creative Commons, and what we want you to do. Creative Commons is an organization that provides the ability to license things that can be shared. So people post their stuff with Creative Commons licensing, and you can use it as long as you abide by by the conditions they have decided. And if you go to search.creativecommons.org, you will see a screen that starts out with the logo that's on this PowerPoint. What you want to do is uncheck the use for commercial purposes box. And what we want you to do now, you can search on Creative Commons for a number of things. Music, for one. Music, images. The stuff that's out on Flickr and Google is not free for you to use unless somebody has licensed it for public use.
Although Flickr does have a Creative Commons search built in.
Yes, they do. So. Flickr, and there are several ways of, but Creative Commons search will also search Flickr. You go out. So what we want people to do for the next few minutes is go out to search creativecommons.org. And there are also, now Incompetech and Ben Sound are two music sites. that are not, I haven't seen them on the Creative Commons search site yet, but they also have royalty-free music that you can just download and use. So what we would like you to do is go out and see if you can find an image, a couple of images, maybe a piece of music that you might want to use in a digital story.
And do have something specific in mind. Have a digital story in mind, because we are going to show you a couple of tools, and we've still got another hour, and so we're going to actually show you the tools and then have you take these resources that you're about to locate and put them together to create that digital story. So,
can I open a browser and show them how to do a search?
you should be able to do screen.
I know it's possible, I just don't know if it's set up to do that.
It's not. Okay.
Share my screen.
So is my screen going to do it?
Yeah.
And then we open a browser. I can't see where the browser stuff is.
So I want
Application. Applications. And then how about Chrome? That'll work.
that. Okay.
Yep. Okay. Okay.
Okay. Go for it.
So here's your query. And you can even search YouTube, right? I mean, you can get little video clips and things from YouTube. So you uncheck the use for commercial purposes. This one I particularly like. We were doing some digital story projects with neighborhoods of Barcelona, and it turned out the library that has all the maps, historical maps of Barcelona, is included in this search, and you can use them. But you see Google, Flickr, Jamendo is a music site, but it's not as good as Bensound or some of the other ones. So if you go out and say, okay, so I'm going to search for, and I'm going to search this one.
Found you 78,000 results.
Only 36,000 images. So there's an image that I might be able to use, depending on what I'm talking about. Should come up, maybe.
So not all the images they show can be used?
It'll tell you. Okay. So if I go, for example, the question was, can we use everything? What will happen in most of these is they'll tell you how to give attribution. Mm-hmm. And particularly in things like Flickr and Google, if you go out and search, slow, we're being slow, let's go back. All right, so if I go to Flickr and search, and I pick that one, and if you scroll down, it'll tell you how you can use it. And they change like the interface like every week. So you look around a little bit, you see some rights reserved. So you go out here, and this is the Creative Commons license. And it's, you may use this if you give appropriate credit. So if I didn't show you the ends of the digital stories that I showed you, but the ends have credits. This is where I got this image, this is who took the image, this is where the music came from. So you put credits on the ends of these. But you have to use the appropriate credit. And there are no, and the other thing, there are no additional restrictions. Generally, Creative Commons, you are not allowed to restrict your own production any more than what you're using is restricted. So you can't say that you need to be paid for your production if it incorporates images that are share alike, for example. But it's really easy to use these. So copy and redistribute in any medium or format, adapt, you're allowed to use them in remixes, even commercial. This one's got even a commercial license. But you have to give attribution.
Okay, so take 5 minutes or
5
so
minutes and search.
and find something, and we'll mute the microphone and we'll get back to our slides.
Mm-hmm. All right, folks, did everybody find some images and music and things that they can use?
Let's see, we had a couple of questions. Where can I access the handout? Okay, there was a QR code that we had back at the beginning. I don't suppose I can jump. I'd have to go back one by one.
There it is. I just missed it.
Okay.
There you go. That's one. There.
That's the QR code. So if you've got a QR reader, you can point it at that code and you can get the handout.
We will also have it mailed with your certificate. So you...
Will all the app names and websites be included? Yes.
Yes. Yes. What we're talking about is definitely included on the handout, along with a lot of other things like articles on digital storytelling and things like that.
Okay. If a student publishes work to a private YouTube account, does that violate copyright? Well,
yes.
Yes. It still violates copyright. Whether or not you're going to get caught is a different matter. If it's on a private YouTube account, the odds of getting caught go down.
But do remember about YouTube. YouTube is owned by Google.
Mm-hmm. So nothing. Google,
really Google has its own lawyers, mm-hmm. and Google will pull down things. Mm-hmm. No, you've seen it. You've gone out to Google sites. You had a really good URL and a really great video, and you were going to use it 2 weeks. And so 2 weeks goes by, and the video's not there anymore, and it's been taken down for a copyright violation, particularly for music.
Yeah. Is that what happens on Pinterest when I go to try to find a video?
Absolutely.
And it's gone?
Yes. So particularly YouTube. If even private accounts on YouTube are subject to YouTube's, they warn you when you upload stuff that you need to have rights to the stuff you upload. Yeah. And they mean it. And now, they're not likely to sue you, but they will take your stuff down.
Yeah, Marlene has commented on that YouTube checks it whether it's private or not, and when you post it,
So, I mean, some people have said, well, Vimeo doesn't do quite the same thing. But the reality is you should be teaching people ethics. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's all try to be ethical.
And try to, when you can, get permission to use things
or use rights-free music. I mean, that's the thing. Music is expensive.
If it is transformative, that's the other thing. If you're taking clips and mashing things together and doing unique and different things rather than putting a soundtrack behind your slides is not transformative. That's not fair use. That's not creating something new out of the original music. So you do have to be careful, and when you start waving the banner of fair use and educational use, and make sure you're actually doing that. So it is a good idea to teach your students about.
Well, and we have an honor code, and the students can actually be punished for using things inappropriately. Yeah. So.
Okay. What about doing a mashup? Yeah, that's what I was just talking about. If you're doing something transformative with the original items, that usually qualifies under fair use, and you can get away with that. But it really does need to be transformative. Like I said, that does not mean you've just played a soundtrack behind your pictures. So.
Your librarians, every school district has a copyright compliance person. Talk to them.
Good resources.
Librarians are fantastic at this.
Mm-hmm. And what you also need to know is what your university or your school district, you need to know what their policy is for fair use and for copyright, because you need to know what they're willing to defend you on and what they're going to wash their hands of and say, nope, you're on your own, you screwed that up. So,
and that's really important. Mm-hmm. I mean, because all of this is gray. Copyright law is law, but of course we work on what the court decides in precedents, right? So there is no line that says this is good and this is not. It's all gray, and particularly with fair use, until it ends up in court, you're never really sure if it's fair use. So what your school, what your district, what your university is willing to defend and say, this is what we'll consider fair use, is going to vary from school to school.
So to be on the safe side, use Creative Commons license, use rights-free images
and talk
music.
to your librarians, because many schools will buy access to websites and collections of images and things like that you can use in educational projects. My school has a whole collection of CDs. If you go to the library, you can use that music. There are art image collections that many schools have access to that are for educational purposes. So that's the thing that you need to be aware of.
Okay, now what we'd like to do is talk some more about other tools that you can use in multimedia projects that you can have your students use. The most basic, I keep pushing the wrong button here. The most basic level is your audio. I mean, we all want our students, we're teaching foreign languages, we want our students to speak in the target language. So just straight up, if we want the basic audio recording, no bells and whistles really, these are some good tools for that. And I'm just going to look at the handout. And
all right. Well, anyway, Audacity, someone here who uses Audacity. Audacity is wonderful because it's free. It's extremely powerful. It works on pretty much any laptop or desktop. The problem is it has a little bit of a learning curve, and people do tend to screw it up.
Well, the more powerful the tool you choose, the more of a learning curve you're going to have. So
it was written by computer people for computer people with subsequent. And if you are interested, I have handouts that I give students so that they don't screw up. So, you can write me and I can show you what the kinds of handouts we do to make sure that they have fewer mistakes. But it is very powerful.
The handout, I was pulling the handout back up for myself. The handout actually talks a little bit about all of these tools and mentions what platforms they're available on. Audacity is software that's free that you download onto a computer. So Windows, Mac, Linux, and it will export in WAV files, MP3s.
Anything, pretty much anything.
So it's a good one. Vocaroo is a browser-based recording tool.
So for Chromebooks, it's really good.
Yeah, because it's all browser-based. Voice Record Pro, that's the one on the left there on the bottom. Even though it says Pro, it's still free. Sharon and I are both big fans of free, so we're sharing free resources.
And in fact, at my school right now, we're deploying iPads with Voice Record Pro to do all the oral assessments for all 3 levels of Spanish.
Yeah, nice thing about Voice Record Pro is it will also export the audio in pretty much any format you want it.
And it also connects to Google Drive, Box, Dropbox, pretty much anything you need to put your files in.
Yeah, as far as sharing the files and getting them off iPads if that's what you're using. And then the one on the right, the DA recorder, DAW recorder, free, is available for Android.
And there are lots of tools like this. But when I was looking for a Voice Record Pro, this one was the closest to Voice Record Pro.
Yeah, that's the problem when you're finding these apps. You have to remember what your students have and what they have available to them. What technology will they be using? If you're in a school that's an iPad school or a Chromebook school, you know what your students have. A lot of times you have no idea what they have, especially at the university level when we often rely on students bringing their own devices. And so then you have a much wider variety and you need to pay more attention to making sure that you're offering them options that will work on whatever device they have available to them. So.
Okay.
So once you move beyond, if you just, you've gone from the most simple, basic audio recording, and you want to move into video, these are some tools that you can use for image and video editing. Pixlr is for editing still images. And it is actually a pretty cool, free, web-based image editor. I believe it's on our handout, isn't it?
Yeah. It's just a whole suite of things.
Browser-based, iOS, Android apps also. So now some of these tools do require a subscription of some sort. I believe the Pixlr, some of the versions, depending on whether or not you're using the app or the desktop, some of them required a subscription, but not all of them. So
and then some of them have, like,
around.
Pixlr has an Express, which is free, and then the more sophisticated one requires it. But this is a photo, if you don't have Adobe licensing anymore for something like Photoshop, this is a really good substitute.
And then Windows Live Movie Maker is, until you get to Windows 10, Windows Live Movie Maker will still work. I'm not sure what's going to be in, what is in 10. I haven't started playing with 10 yet. But iMovie is kind of the top of the line video editor for Mac. If you're in a place that has support and your students are, there's already somebody that can teach your students how to use these are very powerful tools. And iMovie has just changed its format so that the desktop version of iMovie looks very similar to the mobile version that's on your iPads. So maybe that will be easier for students to make the transition if they're doing work on their iPads and then transitioning to a desktop. For people like Sharon and I that learned how to use the desktop version, there's a huge disconnect between how the new version of the software works.
And I would say I give iMovie workshops routinely, and there was an upgrade of the operating system
that
updated iMovie so that about 3 of the functions that I was teaching my workshop disappeared. So I went to give the workshop, and all at once that command's not there anymore. Yep. So be really careful that everything you need to do is still there, but stuff does tend to change more than it used to. Yeah. But iMovie is pretty much the top of the class for free video.
Yeah. YouTube video editor, that's built in, and so if you've got videos uploaded to YouTube, you can use that. WeVideo is a cloud-based video tool that you can use for editing.
Particularly for Chrome, if you're on a Chromebook or a device that you need to do stuff on the web, browser-based, WeVideo is a good choice. There are a lot of other ones. These are things you have to kind of experiment with.
Animoto, someone's actually mentioned Animoto already in the chat there. And so Animoto is a fun little tool. It has free versions and subscription-based versions. It's available as an iOS app, Android, Chrome, web-based, so it's pretty much available everywhere. I think what we discovered is that Animoto, you can do, on the free version, you're limited to 10 items, as in 10 images that you put into your video, and you do have to have an account. You have to log in to be able to finalize your video for that. But it can be any length. It's just 10 items. And those 10 items can be
video.
Yeah, they can be video. So you can have 10 video clips that you've strung together or 10 images that you've strung together in the Animoto.
Animoto is really kind of cool. A bunch of my faculty send me their Animoto things from their phone. They go off and travel someplace, and they put them, because all you do is just select the photos out of your photo roll, and then you can select music, and they have a whole selection of music that they've already granted you permission to use.
And they have themes also, so you select one of their themes. It's very, very simple. So
it's really, the only downside for digital storytelling kinds of things is you're supposed to be able to add text, but neither one of us have been able to make it work.
So I'm thinking that the text function, even though it's supposed to be part of the free version, I'm wondering if the text function is actually part of because they've also changed their pricing, and they've gone to a subscription basis, and I think it was a purchased app before, and so it's a little bit different.
Yeah, you have to kind of pay attention, but so it's hard to get narration with Animoto.
And if somebody that's in the chat knows a little bit more about that, like I said, Sharon and I both tried, and we could not get the text to show up with our free version. So yes, you jumped ahead of me, Jamestown High School. That's my next slide, in fact.
Yes, we love Shadow Puppet.
Yes, let me tell you how much fun Shadow Puppet is. Shadow Puppet EDU. If you are not familiar with this app, you definitely need to play with it. Now, unfortunately, I believe it is iOS only, and that is a huge downside, and we haven't found anything similar on the on Android or web-based. But Shadow Puppet is really cool for a variety of reasons. It has an integrated search function that allows you to search for Creative Commons images on Flickr, Library of Congress images, NASA images, the British Museum. I was going to show this on the.
She's going to point this.
See if I can get over to the.
So we're going to attempt a live demo where Stacy holds the iPad in front of the camera. There is no way to connect an iPad to Adobe Connect. We tried.
So if I get my iPad over here, I'm in Shadow Puppet, and there's a menu over here. And these are the things that I can pull images from. My camera roll. There's a map search, famous landmarks. There. So the Library of Congress, Met Museum. That's where I am right now. I did a search for Picasso in the Met Museum, and it pulled up all of these images. And NASA, NOAA, British Library, Wikimedia Commons, Open Clip Art. So, yeah. So you need, if you haven't played with Shadow Puppet, you need to. But then what you do is you take all these images, and then you put them together. You order them however you want them. You can add text, and then you can add a soundtrack, and you can add your voice to that soundtrack. So Marlene posted a link for Android. Awesome. We didn't find that. We looked.
We did. I kept finding things where people were doing shadow puppets on the walls, Marlene. Thank you.
Thank you, Marlene. So yeah, Shadow Puppet is really, really cool. And you can draw on the screen, and then it exports as a movie, as an MP4. So, and this is free. So very, very cool. You can have up to 100 items in your shadowpuppet.edu in your individual movie, and it can be up to 30 minutes long. So, oh, okay, Marlene is correcting herself. Maybe it's not.
Well, we'll explore, Marlene.
Yeah. Maybe it's under development. Maybe that's what it was. So anyway, what we'd like for you to do now is take some time and play with Animoto or Shadow Puppet. If you've never used Shadow Puppet before, never seen it before, you definitely want to play with that. And see what you can come up with, see what you can create. So
we want you to take 5-7 minutes or so. We'll see how it goes here, and start creating a digital story. If you can play with Shadow Puppet, do so. Try that tool, because that's the one that we think is really going to be useful.
And you do not have to create an account to use Shadow Puppet. For Animoto, you have to create an account to save it. Shadow Puppet, you don't even have to create an account.
Yeah, and for K through 12 people, the idea of account creation sometimes becomes a problem with getting student information out on the. It can sometimes be a problem.
So I guess we'll mute our microphone so that we can help the I forgot to mention another one of the features on Shadow Puppet. There's a little button. Let me show on the camera again. There's a little button down at the bottom called Ideas. My Puppets and Ideas. Ideas actually has ideas for teachers for digital stories. So make sure you look at that too.
And mine asked me when I went up there, if I didn't want to give them my email address, and they would send me a resource kit, and they did. It was really nice. And then they keep, of course, writing to you and saying, how are you enjoying Shadow Puppet? But,
okay, I'm muting the mic again. If anyone runs into any problems while you're trying to use any of these tools, type something in the chat and we'll see if we can help you out. Okay, I just saw the question. How do the shadow puppet files get saved and shared? And that's what we were just doing. It creates an MP4 on your device, in your camera roll on your iPad, and once you have it. Let me see if I can do this again. I apologize for having some. Okay, so I have a video.
Did you get something done? Or you just,
I did.
I see your messaging.
It's your family, right? You did your family thing?
Yeah.
I don't really want to record right now, but.
Share it. Is it like
Oh, that's cool.
I can save it to the camera roll, or I can touch share, and then all these options show up. And so it says I can do iCloud, Twitter, YouTube, email, message, copy link, more. Grown-ups only. And then I can do Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, email, or open in, all these other things.
It's so fun.
So, and something else that I don't know if you figured out when you were making your videos. Oh, I deleted my video. Some images here. When you start recording, you decide if you want the audio or not. I'm going to turn that off, but I'm recording, and you can. On the screen, I can record these as I'm moving through my slides.
I didn't record anything, but I put text.
Lots of
Just
cool
click,
features with
just
Shadow
click the
Puppet.
arrows.
Okay, so let's see, can I save the project somewhere in order to go back and work on it before creating a video? Yes, I believe Shadow Puppet saves your draft. So no, it does not have to be completed in one session, because I have drafts that I've been playing with, and no. So you do need to save it, but it doesn't have to finalize it. So,
I like, yeah, the Shadow Puppet is marvelous. Yes, that's what we think too. We really like Shadow Puppet.
yeah. I think what I was doing with Shadow Puppet is I was just closing the app and going, I was just hitting my home button on the iPad and then going somewhere else and then coming back to it. Because when I try to hit cancel and going back, it's telling me it's going to start over.
Also a Facebook page where you can see what people are doing with it.
Oh, cool. Shadow Puppet Facebook page?
Whoa, I'll be doing that.
A lot of these apps have Facebook pages and communities where people can exchange ideas. So but Shadow Puppet is really designed for education.
Mm-hmm. Well, there are two versions of it. The EDU version, I think, has more education-based features in it. So, very cool. So did you, at the remote site, did you all create things and share them with each other? We've been looking at the projects around the table here a little bit. So, hopefully y'all had some success in creating a few things.
And have fun.
Yeah.
The next thing we want to talk about, they tend to be called interactive whiteboard apps, although sometimes if you search for that name, you get how to project your whiteboard through your iPad or something. So these are really presentation apps that allow you to use multimedia to do presentations as if you were on a whiteboard.
And this is our caveat for interactive whiteboards. When you're looking for one, we've got this on our handout. You want to make sure you're looking for a tool that has the ability to import a variety of things. You want to be able to import still images. You want to be able to import video if you can. Be able to import documents. Some of them are free. Some of them are not free. Explain Everything, for example, is one of the few not free apps that we're talking about. But it is the Cadillac of the interactive whiteboards. Explain Everything is like $3.99 in the App Store for iOS, and that it's really worth it if these are features that you're interested in incorporating in projects or having your students incorporate. But for some of these, for the free versions, there are some limitations on everything that you can import, whether or not you can import images or documents or video. And you want to be able to draw, annotate on the documents, draw on a blank whiteboard. Some of these allow you to record your voice. So you've got the voiceover narration in addition to perhaps a soundtrack to go with it. And you want to make sure, again, that these files can be exported in a way that you can share easily with your students. So several of these will export as MP4s, just like Shadow Puppet. So our handout does list all of these that you see on our slide, and we've got a little bit of an explanation about some of the features in them. And again, some of these require an account, some of them don't. Explain Everything is the really nice one with all of the features. And Sharon's favorite aspect of Explain Everything is the fact that you can type in the right to left.
This is a problem if you're supporting less commonly taught languages. Mm-hmm. That the ability, obviously you can draw the character sets, but we wanted the ability to be able to type in right to left languages, and Explain Everything does that. Yeah. So, and the nice thing about Explain Everything, it's inexpensive. It works the same way on Android and iOS, so you don't have to worry that you've got two different sets. People in the same class are going to have two different sets of instructions, which always happens. Yeah. And it now has an extension for Chrome and some other things too. So. And
it is Windows based also. I mean, it's PC based. Web. I mean,
you can use it.
Yeah. EduCreations is iOS. But it's a very good free one. It's not quite as good as Explain Everything, but it is free.
If you're not teaching Arabic, it's probably not a huge problem.
Right. But it's the interactive whiteboard. You do have to create an account to do anything with EduCreations. You can kind of start playing around with EduCreations and create something, but you can't actually finalize it, save it, or share it unless you create an account. So if you want to be able to export it to your camera roll, you have to have the Pro account. But the free version will allow you to share it. I believe you get a link, you can email it, you can message it to someone, and you get a code, you can embed it in web pages. But if you actually want it exported on your camera roll as an MP4, then you do have to have the Pro account. The other nice thing about EduCreations is it does have a built-in editor. So, when you're thinking about using something like this interactive whiteboard to create a lesson, and the EduCreations website also has shared, you can either do public or private, and so if you create lessons and share them publicly, it will be on the EduCreations website, and then you can see what other people have created and share what you have created. And so you create, as an instructor, as the teacher, you can create an entire lesson, or you can have your students use this to create their digital stories. So it's just another platform that they can use for that. But you can record your voice, handwriting, drawings. You can import images. You can take photos and use them, take photos directly into the app, into the whiteboard. You can type text. You can draw with a stylus or your finger on your iPad. So EduCreations is a pretty good one. Show Me and Screen Chomp are two other free ones. Screen Chomp does not require an account. It's pretty basic. It's kind of a cute, fun interface. All of those are iOS. Show Me, I think you also have to have an account to share. Linsu Create does have an Android version. So that's one that you can use. And the free version allows up to 15 minutes of recording time. So we'd like for you to play around with one of these now for a few minutes. It's a little different from Shadow Puppet because it's not purely image-based. Some of them you can import an image to the background. Like I said, EduCreations, Explain Everything. Those are the more complex of the tools that allow you to do that. But think about what you can annotate. Again, recording your voice to go with the content. And try these out. Pick one and try it out for a few minutes and see what you can come up with. Can I type the names of the bottom three again? Okay. Can you type in?
Yeah, sure.
Screen Chomp. Oh, type EduCreations. That's the good free one. EduCreations, Screen Chomp, and Linsu.
Oh, is Linsu the one that you can't see?
Yeah.
Okay, so.
She's at the bottom three, or they said Fairfax said the bottom three. Wait, you got two L's there.
Oh, all right. Lensu, create.
Yeah. Okay, so those are the three on the out of order, I guess.
And
but.
try to think about having your students do this. The nice thing about doing these things on portable devices or Chromebooks is that having the students do the creation makes them do the thinking. These are best known for flipped classroom kinds of things, where people go out and they explain, we've got some prof who's doing little economics micro lessons, and all the students then get quizzed when they come to class and they work problems in class instead. That's really nice. But in language learning, we want the students to do the production. So we had a discussion here where one of the objectives might be the use of the preterite and the imperfect or something. So you might want students to create a lesson for another class on preterite and the imperfect, or who can create the best lesson, the most creative, most interesting lesson on the preterite and the imperfect. Because that, they'll remember, if they create it, they'll remember it.
And that on their pyramid, Andy, we have a pyramid that said you remember 90% of what you teach or something.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Who was the guy that wrote that? Glass?
Something like that.
Yeah.
You know, it's you remember what you have to learn to teach, and that's the important thing. So try to imagine, use one of these and imagine how you might have your students use something like this in class.
Let's do it again. I'm going to turn the mic back on so I can answer the questions. How are the whiteboards significantly different from Shadow Puppet?
We were
And
using it.
I don't know if y'all can hear me or not.
They can practice writing, but also we were doing it for distance Arabic. And one of the problems we had was that we couldn't focus.
The biggest difference between Shadow Puppet and the interactive whiteboards is that, for me anyway, Shadow Puppet is more focused on images, and you're using the image as the main part, the main backdrop of the presentation. You know, you're still putting audio on top of it, but it's the images. Whereas the whiteboards give you the flexibility, especially one like Explain Everything, where you can pull in a document and you can annotate on top of that document, and you can do, if you've got an image, you can annotate on top of the image with a lot more precision than you can with Shadow Puppet. And it's also you're able to do just the doodling on the whiteboard, and so there's a lot more flexibility with the interactive whiteboards than with Shadow Puppet. But Shadow Puppet's still a really great tool depending on what your goals are for your student and their project. So let's
Something about
see.
making a screen a white smartboard.
Yeah, do any of these apps make a screen a smartboard? And I'm not sure I understand that question. That you may be looking for something more like Doceri, and if that's the case, then no, they don't really. Now, there are some interactive, collaborative whiteboard apps, if that's what you're looking for. If you want something that more than one person can work on at the same time, there are a few of those, but we didn't include any of those. Because they're not really as much for digital storytelling.
But Byboard is one, and Talkboard is another.
Yeah, so we're putting those in the chat for you.
Those are collaborative whiteboard apps, so people can work together.
Yeah, those are two different ones. Go ahead and
two different ones.
Byboard and Talkboard. Those are two different
ones. And I found like there's one called Real Time Board.
I haven't tried that one.
It's not iOS, that's why. And there's some browser-based ones as well for Chromebook schools.
Oh, Limnu is the other one that I found. Limnu.
Limnu.
Yeah. So those are a few collaborative whiteboards where more than one person can participate.
And there are ways of hooking up your tablets to your smartboards and all that. We hadn't gotten into that. It depends on your brand of smartboard and your brand of tablet, basically.
Limnu, I think there's a free version of Limnu, because I just was looking at it, and I think I downloaded it and was playing with it. Maybe I'm mistaken about that. So maybe it's not free.
And although we very much promote free apps, depending on what you're trying to do, like Explain Everything, when I bought it was $2.99. It's now $3.99. It's worth every penny.
Yeah. Yeah, one of our participants here was playing around with, what were you playing with? Show Me?
Yeah.
And I let her play with Explain Everything. You want to tell your
I was trying Show Me, and I was like, wait a minute, it doesn't have some of these things that I'm used to. I couldn't move text around. And then I started playing with Explain Everything. And I realized that it is a lot better, and it's a lot easier to manipulate and work with.
And it's $3.99. Come on, it's a cup of coffee. So, other thoughts that you all would like to share? We've got a little less than 10 minutes here at the end. Other questions that have come up? Anything you'd like to share about experiences? Anything that you played with that you like better than other apps, or any apps that we didn't mention at all that you think are good that we want to share with everyone? Some people typing.
Realia.
Is it Realia?
Mm-hmm. That's a website, right?
Oh, yeah, it's not the app.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have app.
Well, but it's a good site to search.
Mm-hmm. What is Realia?
Mm-hmm.
Realia is like authentic photo.
It's a collection,
It's a collection,
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're a French professor?
Oui, mais j'enseigne seulement le français au lycée.
Oui, yes, because I have a website for you if you want.
Ah oui, c'est super.
It's like INA, and it's a website about like all the archives.
Archives. I have it on. Actually, I have it on here.
You want to share that one for any French teachers that are out there?
Oh, that'd be great.
INA is like Institute National
National-
of Audiovisual.
You want to
So
put that?
everything from
type it in?
audiovisual from France, you
Ah.
have it.
Mhm.
Like
c'est super.
from 20, 30, 50 years, 60 years, 70.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yep.
I need to write that down.
Lifeguard, Sonic Pinks, book creator. Yeah, book creator. Someone mentioned earlier.
So I could use that and put it in these things, or you think?
INA.
INA.
I think you can have an app, no?
It's fun to see.
It has
too,
an app. I've
Marlene.
got it on here. Yeah.
So
It's
an app.
kind of fun.
You
Yeah.
have an app.
An archive.
And to answer the question about how long it has taken us to prepare these resources, I'll say that Sharon and I, we'll put a plug in for the reason Sharon and I know each other. We're both members of IALT, the International Association for Language Learning Technology. That's also how we know your host here, Dick. And so as members of IALT, we have met up at conferences off and on for the last, 15 years or so. But in the last 3 years, how long have we been doing workshops together?
3 or 4.
Yeah, in the last 3 or 4 years, we've been working together with some other colleagues also from that organization and presenting workshops together. And so the resources that we're sharing with you are things that we've found over the years. Some of them are things we've known about for a while. Other things, Shadow Puppet I found in October, and started playing with it.
I can show the website
Okay.
at some point. It's Chrome. There we go.
yeah.
Chrome.
So
All right. So
IALT. Oh, you're showing our
I was going to show ours, but okay. So the IALT
Social
website
Security.
is here. If you want more information, that's
Mhm.
cool. Our little plug. The other thing is we actually do have.
the QR code that was on the handout that you'll be getting will take you to our website.
Yeah, I need to
Sites,
sites.google.com. And then I can't do that. All right. So let's see. I'm trying to show
There's an
our
app for
site.
that, yeah.
There. Oh, maybe it's there.
Wait, did you guys present it at FLAVA? Did you present it at FLAVA?
Yeah, we've done.
Mhm. We've done
Various-
FLAVA,
various
I think I saw
versions.
that
Mhm.
on the.
Nah, don't see that. We will keep going. There's an app for that.
Put your name.
Oh, that's right. My name is unique enough that.
Mhm.
There we
it is.
go.
Yep.
Oh,
So this
that's
is our site.
cool.
That we've been working on off and on for the last several years.
So that's
really cool.
so that's a site, and we encourage people to add things.
Mm.
Here is a form saying my
Mhm.
favorite app, and it's a Google form, and so you tell us a little bit, about an app you found, and this can be anything, not just digital storytelling and stuff,
Mhm.
and an app that you find, and then there's a way of seeing what other people have contributed.
And this presentation is linked on this site. So if you
So
use
under
the,
slides in the app list,
Mhm.
here is the
Oh, cool.
QR code and the handout.
So this is where you will end up if you just have the
and,
QR
and,
code from
and this
earlier
is the link to the PDF version.
of that handout. Yep. Let's go back to the chat. There's a few more
Yeah,
comments that
okay.
have come in.
We got to go back to the chat. So I need to stop sharing, yes? All right,
Yeah,
yeah,
you might be able to just click down
there.
Mhm. Yep.
All right, you got to read because I can't.
Yes, definitely need to try the apps out and jump back to the QR code again. So go back to the document.
All right, so we need to go.
Back to the beginning. Right there.
There,
All right.
There's the QR code.
And thank you so much for joining us this
Yes.
afternoon. Looks like we had a lot of really good participation. Don't know if there's a way for Dick to know how many people were at each site, but that's
Well,
pretty awesome.
because he has to give certificates, so
Oh,
yes.
cool, yeah. I'm curious how many people we shared this with today, so I'd like to be able to go back and tell my boss who let me fly up here to do this.
And
you know.
we particularly like the ringer who came in from Minnesota.
Oh yeah, she's already left. She had to go catch a bus. But it was great to have
Marlene is at Carla in Minnesota.
Yeah.
She's also a good friend, right? So
Is Evan free now?
Yeah.
Thanks.
so we can do a plug for Carla because she does all sorts of workshops.
yeah, she really does.
You
Some
can
really
get
good
those
summer
summer workshops.
Technology.
Yeah, and they have because it's the National Foreign Language Resource Center, they have scholarships to go.
Really, like if you talk about like
So you should pay attention to
Oh,
Carla.
yeah, because we were talking about La Fête des Lumières
you just
à
show-
Lyon.
Yeah.
So I just looked it up.
and you have video
I guess is that about it?
That's it.
video from
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
le journal télévisé.